Skipper by Nova. Skipper visited her one summer night in the hospital. When all was quiet and dark, he snuck through the shadows and slinked up across the walls until he reached her bed. With his long snout drooping through the darkness, his ragged, quick breaths cutting through the silence, he whispered something into her ear. "I know when you are going to die," he said softly. It was as if it were being said in her head, bouncing off of the walls of her brain and exiting out the other end. With his ragged breaths quickening, he soon slumped down off of the wall and curled up at her feet in a pitch-black ball. She fell asleep quite soon after that. The next day when she awoke, Skipper was sitting there, waiting for her to get up. He nuzzled her hand and she pet him. His fur felt like ink staining her hands, rubbing off of his skin and seeping into hers. Nurse visited her after that. Skipper waited patiently in the corner while Nurse checked on her vitals. Skipper watched intently, his hair bristling on the back of his neck. When Nurse left, Skipper slinked back over to her and sat there like a dutiful guard dog. Older and younger daughter came to visit after that. "You should be able to go home soon," older daughter told her. "Mom, are you okay?" Mom was looking at Skipper the entire time. When she snapped out of it, she looked back to older daughter. Nodding, she sat up a little straighter. Older daughter got up to get a coffee. Skipper watched. Mom turned to younger daughter, telling her about Skipper. Younger daughter laughed. It was obvious that she did not believe it. At night, Skipper liked to play in the shadows. He would jump in and out, falling from the ceiling to the ground. Sometimes he would pop back up and trot around the room pompously. It would give her quite the show, and she would clap softly and smile. Skipper would even change shape for her. But she didn't like this so much, and so Skipper resigned to his original dog form. One night, Skipper approached her slowly, black inky blots floating upward into the ceiling. "They will come and take you away from here soon," Skipper began. "Your daughters. They will take you to your final resting place, the house with 2 floors, a basement, and carpet. There you will make your peace. You will see everyone you need to see. You will finish your will and testament, and you will know God." "Was I right, Skipper?" she said, frightened by the dog's raspy speech and uneased at the warm breath against her ear. "Is there really a God?" Skipper didn't answer right away, contemplating how much he should really divulge right now. "There is a grand design," Skipper said. "It is not the classical sense of a god, a master programmer of a simulation, chaos working in the most orderly fashion imaginable. An action and an equal and opposite reaction. That is God. When you eat too much, you feel bad. When you hurt someone's feelings, they hurt someone else." Skipper trailed off, and she could hear a whimper as he made his way back into his corner. He slumped down and curled himself into a ball. After that, it went dark. She spent the next few days fearing for her own mortality, growing nearer and nearer with each passing second. Skipper did his best to comfort her. He would nuzzle her wrinkled, tired fingers and sometimes hop on his hind legs to entertain her. She appreciated it, but the nagging sense of the grand design would send all of her happy thoughts crashing down around her. Older and younger daughter came soon. They told her how they were ready to take her back home, how she was going to be cared for the rest of her life. This did nothing more than make her worry more. She had people to see, a will to write. She desperately needed to update it. Perhaps she should contact an attorney. Before she knew it, she was in older daughter's house, propped up against a comfortable couch, an empty fireplace just ahead of her. During the day, she would sit, she would stare. It sometimes became agony. Skipper tried his best to entertain her, but there was only so many times he could stand on his hind legs before her excitement toward it diminished. By night, she would shut her eyes and pray. "Dear Lord, save me from this eternal fate, this never-ending dark. I am begging you to show me something, anything that would let me know you are real." Skipper would curl up at her feet as she did. He would listen to her soft whispers, crying out to the Lord in her quietest voice yet. Sometimes he would nuzzle up against her hands, clasped together in long prayer. "Why is he not answering?" she asked him. "The Lord, God, he will not hear my prayers." "There is a difference between answering and listening," Skipper said. "Perhaps it is answering, but you do not yet comprehend what it has to say. Perhaps the language of God is silence, and we are but poor translators, no?" She didn't answer after that. She stopped praying too. She focused more on her earthly possessions, as she would soon leave them. Her will was written with the help of her daughters, and soon they moved her upstairs. She was now positioned in a small fold-out couch facing a TV. Younger and older daughter knew she enjoyed British television, so they would play it for her on repeat. She was too weak to say when she was getting sick of it. The constant murder mysteries and period dramas. In life it used to excite her. Now, close to death, it made her sick. Skipper would sometimes droop from the ceiling in front of the television so that she could not see it. That was a welcome difference. She would watch his inky blackness swaying and contorting in impossible angles. Skipper would look at her and give her a toothy smile before slinking back into the corner. Soon she was moved up into the second floor, staying in a more permanent bedroom. No one said anything. No one admitted it, but it was coming. The cold black hand of death was looming over her, and soon she got visitors. Many of her grandsons and daughters, her in-laws and her brothers and sisters, the ones that were still alive. When her eldest granddaughter came to visit, she was with a friend of hers, Steve, who was her senior by nearly 3 years, or was it 4? As her granddaughter and him were talking, Skipper slinked in the shadows and dripped from the ceiling into a puddle just beside her bed. He sprung up from his puddle, and his snout played softly at her eardrum. "Your granddaughter is being sexually molested by Steve," Skipper said softly. "He is waiting until she is 18 to ask her to be his partner, but for now he is sexually active with her." Her eyes widened, and when they both left she quickly tugged on younger daughter's shirt. Younger daughter looked down at her quizzically. She opened her mouth to say something, but her mind was slowed by the endless medications and old age. "Skipper doesn't like Steve," was all she could say. Younger daughter looked concerned at first, but soon she brushed it off and went about her day. She couldn't blame younger daughter. She probably would have done the same to her own mother. The days and weeks seemed to bleed together. Skipper seemed to be getting more restless, and sometimes she wouldn't see him for the entire day until that night. People kept coming to visit her family from across the country. But soon she was alone. The same television show playing incessantly over and over again, and Skipper was gone as well. No one was there for her. She was completely and utterly by herself, with her own thoughts, but she reflected on what Skipper had said, that the language of God was silence. Perhaps somehow God was with her, but she could not hear him. One night the moonlight streamed in from the small window in the comfortable room she was in. The sky was overcast. It looked as if it would rain sometime later. As she lay there, unable to sleep, staring at the window, the door opened with a soft creak. 2 shadows crept into the room and approached her bedside. All she could do was stare. It was older and younger daughter. Over her bed they joined hands and stared down at her. Between the two of them stood Skipper, staring into her with his white, beady eyes. "Mom," younger daughter said softly. "Mom, it's okay. We'll be fine. You can go." All she did was stare at them after that. They stood there for a bit more and then left the room. She was left in the intense darkness and the deafening silence, with Skipper just next to her. Skipper said nothing this time. There were no words of comfort, there were no loving nudges. Skipper just stood and stared at her. She must have fallen asleep, because before she knew it, it was just before dawn. Skipper was nudging the window with his snout, and before long he managed to open it. She listened as the rain was just starting, the gentle pitter-patter of the droplets smashing against the glass and the pavement. Skipper stared at her as the rain began to pick up. She stared back. Skipper didn't need to say anything. She knew what he would have said if he did. It was time. Time to go. Time to die. Darkness crept up around her eyes, and she felt her consciousness slowly slipping away, her memories darting past her at light speed. Though to her, it was elastic. She could revel and live her entire life another time. Every memory, every moment, her first steps, her first words, her first kiss, her daughter's birth, her husband's flesh, her old house, every hug, every fight, every bruise, every kiss. She remembered it all. It all crept across her mind. Skipper slinked out of the room, out of the door, and to the room younger daughter was staying in. Soon, everything was black. She found herself in the empty void. It wasn't white, it wasn't black. To describe it in words would be impossible. It was a place the living cannot comprehend, a place that consciousness could not reach. Skipper bounded past her toward the doorway. "Come on, we are almost there," he said, with a little excitement in his voice. "What's on the other side?" she asked, afraid to take a step. Skipper stopped and looked back at her. "I have no idea," he said. "Come find out." Skipper disappeared into the void. She gulped and took a step forward. She felt better, refreshed, and with each step everything felt easier. With each step she became 1 year younger, and soon she was middle-aged. After more and more steps she was a teenager again, and then a child, and then even younger. She sank to the ground and found her pudgy hands extending in front of her in a crawl. She was an infant. The empty void scared her more than anything now. She didn't want to go any further. She scrunched up her face and was about to wail when Skipper poked his head back through. "Hurry up! You only have all eternity." This gave her infant form the resolve to keep moving, though she was unsure if she understood what Skipper just said. With a few quick, high-pitched, and labored breaths, she crawled out into the void, and she became even more young. Beyond birth, beyond life, beyond death. The white filled her senses, rushed all around her, and she felt warmth, real comfort. She was finally at peace. She was finally at rest, and Skipper curled up around her, encasing her in his eternal glow. She was okay. I'm so sorry.